Welcome to the channel. Today I'd like to chat about the Lee Universal Decapping die, one of my favorite dies. You can see this one's quite hammered. These tools have a hard life with me, these dies, but the basic functionality is that we have what is really only an outer sleeve of a die. The inside is large enough to just about stick your finger in, and all the way down it runs a mandrel that is held in place in the rear by a 1/2 inch nut. The purpose of these dies is to decap, and as a matter of fact I run them quite frequently in my Dillon. So right now, for example, I have a job where I have to decap a lot of 308. I set it up so it's entirely automated. We're running the case feeder on the top, which get fed into the shell plate, and from there it just rams straight up into one of those decapping dies. Now the decapping die has a nice little feature, because if it hits anything that is stuck, if it hits a primer that just doesn't want to shift, or for example a Badan primer has slipped in, then all that happens, provided you haven't screwed this in too tightly, is that the decapping pin will just push out of the top. And should that happen, then you can use a hammer to hit it and knock it back in. That sounds savage, but that is much better than trying to undo all this stuff and trying to set the depth. And you want a bit of slide on this anyway, because what happens is that you're bound to over shove the decapping pin in a little bit too far, and the decapping pin has an end stop. There's a place it won't go further. See, that's as deep as this pin will go, and at that stage it'll push the decapping pin out to the correct depth. So you don't have to worry about setting the seating depth of this decapping pin. It'll kind of do it on your own. You can do it manually, but with an empty case. But to tell you the truth, some cases are different. Now the difficulty that I'm having is that that system might not necessarily work if you're trying to decap something like 762. Now we can see here this is a box standard GGG 762 case that I'm trying to decap. This one here clearly did not go. I mean, we went so far as to deform the primer cup, but we can see that there's a rim around the primer cup, and that is actually a crimp on the primer. And so this primer cup does really not want to leave this case. And to kind of like force it out all the way, we have to make sure that this guy here, this nut, is adjusted very tightly. And then it'll still push out, and then we adjust it a bit more, and it'll still push out, and it'll adjust a bit more. And then when we finally have it tight enough that it doesn't push the primer out anymore and the primer ejects proper, well then what happens if it hits a primer that has a bit of crap inside, or when it hits a Badan primer, well then this decapping pin really hasn't got anywhere to go. It can't be pushed out because we have tightened the nut so much. And then what happens? Well, what happens is something like this. See, this is a decapping pin from a Universal Decapping set, and it really rather got bent. And that's still better than most, because some of them just break off. See, that one broke off, this one broke off, this one broke off. This is something I'm using to heat treat my dies with these days. But see, they're all Universal Decapping pin. By the time they're done, they find themselves into my workshop in various tools. See, this one, for example, I've used to polish something. I think some sort of die. Yeah, I think I used this to polish a 308 die. So, you know, I don't throw the metal away, I just reuse it. Now, I have tried repairing these. Now, this is a decapping pin that I have tried repairing, and basically what I've done is I've heated it up, and then I've tried using vices and grips, and in the end the set square to try and hammer it into some sort of shape on an anvil. But I don't actually think that this is going to hold. I think this is going to be far too weak. I think for 308 this might do it. For 762, no chance. And the problem there is that really this is the last spare that I have. And if we compare it to something out of a pistol caliber set, see this guy here, this is for you, I don't know, your 45 ACP, anything you want, anything pistol. The Universal is larger. Ugh. So I've had about a dozen of these, and I'm kind of down. Now some of them are probably my own fault. See, this one here I modified, because what would happen is as I decapped, the primer cup kept getting stuck at the end. That's not with this brass, this was with something else. And so I lengthened one in the hope that it would push it all the way out of the pocket and that it wouldn't come back, but it didn't really work, so I guess I wrote that one off. So yeah, I'm going to need to order some more of these. As for these universal decapping dies, I think they're sensational. They're absolutely fantastic. I have probably 4, 5, 6 of these, and I never have enough. I mean, every time I need one, I can't find one because I put it into something. So for example, when I'm full sizing on the Dylan, so I take the decapping pin and expanding mandrel, and I put it in here. Now it's a bit of a squeeze and you'd have to sink it past the top, but it basically means that your full sizing die only does the outer diameter, and then the next sizing die, which is a decapping die, then does the resizing, and that way you kind of spread the load of the primary die. Of course, that'll only work if you don't have to decap as well, because for decapping I don't tend to use full sizing dies. For decapping I use a decapping die, so I'm a huge fan. So yeah, so difficult. Can you make these yourself? I think you'd be hard pushed. I mean, obviously the front is hardened. I mean, I guess if I get desperate I'll have to, but like I say, I don't hold up much hope. I mean, you really need straight, and I think I've made that one too thin as well. So anyway, those are my worries. I've got another 3,000 cases to go, so wish me luck with my one spare and my one over too long and my one quasi-fixed one. I guess I have some knocking around another universal decapping die if I get desperate, but you know, I'm loath to take everything apart. So I hope that was interesting, and yeah, I'm a fan of these dies. Anyway, wish me luck, and I will see you next time. Bye bye.